Welcome to Mining Review Africa, and today we are speaking to Marley Palin, who's head of Explore and Innovation at BHP. Marley, thank you very much for joining us today.
No, thank you. Really excited to have a bit of a chat.
Great stuff. So, Marley, let's start by me asking you, can you tell us about BHP Explore and why did BHP launch this program?
Yeah, one of my favorite questions to answer. So BHP Xplor started 3 years ago, 2023, and BHP started this program very much anchored to our copper growth aspirations, and realizing that in order to meet some of those, critical copper supply gaps that we have as we race towards the energy transition, that more
Mhm.
early stage exploration projects were needed. And a realization from BHP that perhaps some of the best exploration ideas didn't come from inside the four walls of
Yeah.
BHP, but were instead out there in the ecosystem. And so we went through a bit of an exercise as a company to go, all right, well, what are the different sort of programs or mechanisms that we can put in place to better engage with that early stage exploration ecosystem, whether it's, research, private companies, public junior market, and get some of those amazing ideas, amazing projects into BHP. And that's where the BHP Xplor program was born. We launched in August 2023, and we're now going into our fourth cohort in 2026, which is really exciting.
Wow. Now, Molly, can you tell me what makes Explore different from traditional approaches to early stage exploration?
Yeah, probably two big differentiators for Explore. And I'll start with the easy one and then I'll go to the exciting one. In terms of the easy one, when you are accepted into the Explore program, you are actually provided with a US $500,000 grant, equity free. So we provide non-dilutive funding for those early stage exploration ideas to progress their work programs. And this is one of, if not the only place on the market that you can actually get funded to do early stage exploration in a non-dilutive way. And so this gives, some of those more experimental, very early stage ideas that the market wouldn't fund a place to come to get off the ground, and teams that are just starting out a place to get some of that early seed capital to get them going without having to give away an equity position or a project position. So that sort of non-dilutive element of the funding is the first differentiator.
Mhm.
But I think if you'd speak to most of our cohort, I think they would say they applied for the money, but what they found much more valuable was the program, which is really the second differentiator. And so when you get accepted into the Explore program, you're provided with the funding, but then you actually sort of run through a 9-month accelerator program with us, where we provide sort of everything under the sun to accelerate your exploration work program. So you get a technical coach who meets with you every fortnight to unpack your project. Where are you going next? Help you plan your data acquisition, help you interpret the results and figure out the so what. You get a monthly business coach where you sit down and work through your business strategy, your funding strategy, your structure, your board composition. You get a leadership coach where you work through some of your interpersonal development areas, some of the areas that you want to grow and learn as a leadership. You have fortnightly masterclasses and workshops that look at all things technical, all things operational, and all things business. You're introduced to BHP's global sort of black book of SMEs, vendors, service providers. And so, the funding is why people often come to the program, but what you get through the 9 months is so much more holistic in
Mhm.
really turning you into a more sustainable, more investable exploration company.
So, Molly, what examples from past cohorts best illustrate how the program accelerates early stage discoveries?
Yeah. So I might give you two examples from our first cohort to keep it a little bit consistent. So the first one, and one of my favorites, is Jim Mungle. He was a
Mm.
professor at Carleton University that came to Explore with an exploration idea. It was really early stage. He didn't have a company, a team. He hadn't done any work on the project yet. It was very early and very much theoretical at that stage. And through the journey of Xplor, he was given the funding, brought into the program, and then over that 6 months, entirely built his business from scratch. We actually had to say to him, you're going to go need to sort of incorporate as an entity if we're going to be able to pay you this money. On the first formal day of the program, he had to hire a new staff member. He was learning all of the mechanics from day dot and very much built his company as he progressed his work program. At the end of the program, BHP actually ended up doing a deal. And, we're still exploring that part of the world with Jim today as part of his, newly found company, Bronzite Exploration, that was very much founded through Xplor. So that's a really good example of sort of a really early stage individual. Another great example that we chat about a lot is Kingsrose Mining. They were also in the first cohort. They were at the other end of the spectrum to Jim. They were a publicly listed company, had a number of team members and had a reasonable amount of capital in the bank at that point in time. So they didn't necessarily come to Xplor for the funding, but they were looking to explore in Fennoscandy. They had a really interesting nickel copper play and realized that it's a tricky part of the world to explore in and one that they could probably use a strategic or a major partner if they were going to go and do it big. And so they, applied for Xplor. We brought them into the program, and over the space of the program, they consolidated one of the largest, and I think it is the largest in the world, sort of data repositories across Fennoscandy. They did a whole bunch of regional mineral systems work, and then post the Xplor program, we then sort of formed two different generative alliances with Kingsrose that are still in action today. So they're a much more mature company, but through Xplor, we were able to provide sort of some of the stability of a large major, share some of our data, our insights, and our thinking, and together explore a part of the world that's notoriously pretty tricky to do exploration in.
That sounds really interesting. Now, Molly, can you share some examples of how Xplor participants are applying new tools or ideas to unlock mineral potential?
Yeah. So one of our big sort of cornerstone events at Xplor is what we call Toolkit Camp, which usually happens in March off the back of PDAC. And the purpose of Toolkit Camp is to really expose the cohort to some of the latest and greatest techniques, technologies that we're seeing. And so whether it's, new emerging techniques in geophysics that they might be able to try, developments in drilling technologies to make it safer, more efficient, cheaper to drill. We're seeing a lot of teams do some work and start to play in the AI ML space and a lot of sort of data-driven targeting, which is really exciting. And so Toolkit Camp for us very much focuses on, depending on their work program, matching them with some of the new technologies to see how they can incorporate that either into their current work program or the work that they do beyond Xplor.
Great stuff. Now, one final question, Molly. Why is it important for Xplor to have a presence at Mining Indaba 2026, particularly in the context of Africa's exploration landscape?
Yeah, so I mean, of course, BHP sees Africa playing a massive role in
Yeah.
that sort of hunt for critical minerals as part of the energy transition. We've started dipping our toes back into Africa through our investments in Botswana through Xplor. And there are two investments to Tume Cobre that we made over the first couple of years of Xplor, which was our first opportunity to work on continent again. And for us, we see huge endowment potential in Africa, some, very well-known belts and basins that we want to
Yeah.
continue to do work in. We see huge untapped potential in the junior market. And it's something that, we're really excited to help cultivate and, a market that we'd love to help support and build capability in. And so for us, when we were looking at the program next year, we decided, we're better than to take the program to Mining Indaba, sunny Cape Town, at the start of February. Who's going to say no to that? And so we're actually going to kick off the program at Indaba, which will be really exciting, and, announce our 2026 cohort there. And we're hoping to see a number of projects from Sub-Saharan Africa as part of that cohort. So far, Africa is leading the charge on number of applications. We're 2.5 weeks in, but it's my highest number of applications. So hopefully we see some really exciting projects come into that cohort and we can celebrate those teams at Indaba with you all in February.
Great stuff. Well, Molly Palin, Head of Explore and Innovation at BHP, thank you for joining us on Mining Review Africa today, and I look forward to seeing you at Mining Indaba next year.
Yeah, thank you so much. Applications for BHP Xplor 2026 are now open. So if you would also like to join us at Mining Indaba next year, I recommend you applying through the BHP Xplor website. Thanks
Great
so
stuff.
much.
Thank you, Molly.